All righty then, just a little of the celebratory flavor of Kwanzaa by our own Ralph Whitaker.
and the Unity Symphony Orchestra.
Absolutely.
I'm so overcome, I hardly know where to go, but here we are.
Here we are. We're going to celebrate a little bit of the Kwanzaa experience with you today in glimpses and set it through the lens of unity principles. We begin with the libation ceremony.
We do ask that before we begin, we have the permission of the elders in our community. If you are an elder in our community, I ask for permission now to begin this ceremony. You may signify by saying yes.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we pour water, a necessary life-giving and sustaining substance, into rich, potent soil. Just as the water nurtures and supports growth in the soil, so too do our ancestors support and nurture us.
It is an African tradition to pour libation at all special occasions, and today is such an occasion. Pouring libation is a ritual practice of remembering and honoring the contributions of ancestors in many native and ancient cultures. Today, we pour libation out of love and respect for those who once lived in physical form, for those who loved and served, those who laid a strong foundation for us and upon whose shoulders we stand. I ask you to take a moment and in your heart of hearts, give thanks and gratitude for those who came before you in your life, the family, the teachers, the community, who gave you life, who gave you breath, who gave you knowledge, and whose shoulders you stand on. As a spiritual community, we give thanks to the co-founders of the Unity Movement, for certainly we stand on their shoulders, Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, who had a good idea back in the year 1890. We give thanks to Reverend Marie Hanley, who came and started Unity Church of Hawaii in 1937, and we give thanks for the Reverends Phil and Dorothy Pearson, who had the vision to create this beautiful campus that we now enjoy.
Thank you, Mindy. Thank you, Miles Jackson, as well, for honoring us with the libation pouring. The founding principles of Kwanzaa begin with the knowledge that positive change in the world must come from within. There is an African proverb that says, no matter how high a house is built, it must stand on something. So Kwanzaa recognizes the building of a strong foundation for a life to stand on, for a community to stand on, a race or a nation. Kwanzaa celebrates standing on the spiritual qualities of wisdom, of remembering and honoring the past, of the strength to be found in our rich diversity. For whatever we focus on that is good and that is true, we make that truth present in our consciousness, in the consciousness of the world. We make possible a change in consciousness everywhere. The Kwanzaa celebration is symbolized by the items you see on the table before you. It begins with a mat, which represents the foundation of these principles. There are crops on one side to indicate the first fruits and the harvest, rising out of the tradition of the harvest and bounty, and being grateful for that. On this side, there are gifts. Now, Kwanzaa gifts are a little bit different than our Christmas gifts or our Hanukkah gifts, if that's your tradition you grew up with. In Kwanzaa, the gifts are meant to be very purposeful. So something that stimulates education or provides inspiration. So it's recognized by a couple of Unity teaching books here on the table, and by the bookmark in each of your programs today that lists the 7 Kwanzaa principles through the lens of some of the Unity teachings that reflect those principles. And we have a plant and a goblet to aid in the libation pouring, which is about honoring the ancestors and building on their dedication and the gifts they have given as we move forward in our life. And at the center of the table is the kinara, the candle holder, which is again representative of the ancestors. Then we come to the candles that will be lit as we talk of each of the 7 principles this morning. The black one in the center reflects the African-American culture and heritage. And on your right are the red candles, which signify the struggle in individual lives as well in the lives of the people. But on the left is the green candles, which represents the hope of the future and the recognition that on a strong foundation, we are able to move through the struggle into the hope in each of our lives. The first principle is umoja, unity. It's represented to strive for and maintain unity of the family, community, nation, and races. As we look at this reflected in our personal lives, we may think of the principle of oneness that we strive for in our spiritual growth and in our spiritual life, to recognize the divinity within us. And then if we recognize it in every other individual, then we can reach the experience of namaste. The divinity in me sees the divinity in you, and you, and you, and you. And together, rising out of that sense of oneness, we truly come together as a community, as a whole.
The next principle is kujijakuila, self-determination. And we're going to go into this one just a little bit deeper. It begins with this definition, to define ourselves, to create for ourselves and speak for ourselves instead of being defined, named, created for, and spoken for by others. And really what it's inviting us to do is to not take our identity, to not take our development or the definition of the very truth of us from the outside, from other people, from parents, from bosses, from spouses or partners, or from anybody on the outside, but to look truly into ourselves and see that of which we really are. So who are we? Who are you? Who are you? Who am I? We affirm it every week in this spiritual community. We are beloved expressions of God. That is the rock solid truth of who we are. In looking at determination, we can ask some more questions, and we can ask them this way. As a beloved expression of God, am I being all I ought to be? Am I doing the best that I can? Am I getting all that I deserve? Jesus said, it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom of heaven. So, are you reaching your full potential? Am I reaching my full potential? Are we reaching our full potential? That is the question. And if the answer is yes, I dig dog double dare you to dream bigger. And if the answer is no, I invite you to get clear, really clear on what you want. Because Unity has a 3-step process that's probably not new to you, but it's perfect for self-determination. Step 1, make a list. Take that dream and put words to your dream. I want to go on a vacation to Kauai. I want to spend time in an ashram in India. I want to have koa furniture in every room in my house. These are things that I could say are on my bucket list or in my vision statement, but they are words that are attached to my dream. Step number 2, visualize. Put color and dimension and flavor and shape and feelings and aromas. And I just am amazed at that green flash sunset I'm going to see on my vacation on Kauai on Poipu Beach. I can hear the holy chanting. I can smell the incense as I walk down the street in Pondicherry, India. I can luxuriate in my koa armchair, and on my koa sofa, and in my koa rocking chair, and I can see myself putting my clean clothes into my koa dresser and then flopping on my bed that has a koa bed frame. So are you getting the picture? Okay, that's step 2. Step 3 is to take action. In Unity say we can dream all we want, but unless we put action to it, it won't ever amount to a hill of beans. And so this is where the self-determination rubber hits the road. Because in taking action, we make choices. And in making choices and taking action, one of 2 things is going to happen. A, we manifest. It used to be on my list was a zippy blue convertible sports car. And now it is sitting in the parking lot. So you manifest. Or B, you don't manifest. Something else happens, an event or a situation or an appearance of something else going on. I've had that vacation for Kauai on my list for 2 years. And this last year I went to California to help take care of my brother. So because it didn't manifest, does that mean I failed? No. Wayne Dyer says it like this: failure does not exist. Oh, yay, thank you, God. Failure is simply someone else's opinion of how a certain act should have been completed. And once you believe that, then failing becomes impossible. Let me give you an example. Beethoven, as a child, was given a violin, and he handled it very awkwardly as a student. In fact, his teacher gave him exercise after exercise after exercise to try to improve his technique, and then finally gave up and said Beethoven would never amount to much. But Beethoven had a dream. He had that inner desire. So what Beethoven did was he started creating his own compositions and designing studies so that he could, based on his own unique talent, master the technique that was involved in playing that instrument, and grew to become one of the greatest classical composers. So he never saw failure. He just saw an event or a situation as another avenue to continue on with self-determination. If he had known Kujichakulia, he'd have said it, because that's how he lived, and that's how we can live. 1, make a list. 2, visualize. 3, take action. And you will find these principles weave together so beautifully today. The next one is Ujima, collective work and responsibility. To build and maintain our community together and make our sisters and brothers' problems our problems, to solve them together. What a beautiful gift this spiritual community is to us, for we are many places on our journey. And when we come on Sunday, and if we feel like we need to, and we come on Wednesday, or we ask a chaplain for prayer support, or you come and you make an appointment with one of the ministers, if you talk to somebody in the courtyard or before service, we are all here together on our journey. And in that oneness of purpose, we can love and support each other.
The next principle is Ujamaa, cooperative economics, which is stated to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. Well, there are all kinds of ways to profit in life. And if we look at this cooperative benefit through a spiritual lens, as Mindy was just saying, how wonderful to come together to cooperatively grow in our spiritual strength and power, to meet in classes, to gather on Sunday morning, to be in the circle of love and light that is a community. Whenever we strive together, meet one another together, come together, hearts open, minds open, then indeed we profit everyone.
The next principle is Nia, which is purpose. To make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. And this truly does go back to the beginning. Each and every one of us is created in the image and likeness of God. And so the thread of this truth throughout these principles is that you are a beloved expression of God. You are a divine expression of God. You are a beautiful child of God. And I feel like getting out my preacher finger and saying, don't you ever forget it. Please don't you ever forget it. Don't you ever forget it, because it's truly who you are in every fiber of your being.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mindy. Kuumba represents creativity. To do always as much as we can, in the way that we can, in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. The power of creativity in us is one way we make great shifts in the world and in our own life. Creativity is that quiet voice of God nudging you to take a next step. Creativity is this innate power that stimulates all of our senses for our delight and enjoyment, and probably for the delight and enjoyment of others. I used to call myself a textile artist, and it was almost meditative to be in the room where my fabric was, to select the pieces that were going to work into this garment or that quilt, because I was in this state of letting the medium whisper what it wanted to grow into. And our life is the medium in which God whispers what you are to grow into. And remember, it is never too late to decide who you want to be when you grow up.
The last of these principles is imani, faith. To believe with all of our heart in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle.
And I'd like to expand on the principle of faith. We often think in our lives that we can't move things forward, we can't make a change or shift things or change the direction we're going unless our faith is this big. And yet we are told, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you know how little a mustard seed is? Teeny tiny. And the mountain will move in the face of your teeny tiny amount of faith. God doesn't expect us to arrive all at once. He meets us with a gentle nudge and a greeting that says, oh, honey child, I know it seems big and hard, but just take one step forward. There. Oh, wasn't that good? Now just take one more with me. Come along. The journey's fine. And what we find is when we are lifted and carried by this little voice within that just says, just take one more step, it's okay. You don't need to know everything all at once. Eventually, we've made the whole journey. We've gotten all the way to the end of the dream. Time to start another. Martin Luther King said, faith is putting your foot on the rung of a ladder you cannot see. Now, our life often doesn't look as easy as just taking that next step, listening and waiting and taking the next step. When those feet, you look down, and that's one really deep, dark hole that you are stuck in. How do you find that little bit of faith to make a change? When it looks as dark and as traumatic as it ever has, when the crisis is as big as ever has loomed in front of you, if you can meet it from the divinity within you, you don't have to know all the answers, but you say, God is bigger than this hole I'm in or this problem that raises in front of me. When you can do that, you stand in the midst of that problem saying, yes, I brought myself right here to this place. This is what I intended to be in the midst of. I intended to be here so that I could birth the next big thing. My new triumph is just around the corner. If I'm standing in this mess, oh my God, what must God have on the way for me now? When you can speak that into the crisis and the disaster that you may be facing in this moment, then you are truly grasping that little grain of a mustard seed and moving the mountain out of the way. I invite you to breathe in. Stand in front of your mountain in this moment. Close your eyes if you wish. And begin to know that the principles that move through Kwanzaa are moving in your life in this moment. And they are lifted and raised by the tiniest grain of faith to take the next step, to speak the truth, and to move the mountain. So as we come together to join with God today, in this moment, breathe in again. And into the silence, meet God in front of your mountain.